Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming, and you all must be very good at Pokemon Go or whatever it is to get to a secret hiding place, which is this place, because I know I had a hard time getting here. So thanks for coming. My talk tonight is about what developers can do to ensure project success. I'm not going to talk about code. I'm not going to give you any new processes or frameworks like Agile or Scrum or whatever it is. And I've also included some things about what business people can do. So first of all, about me. I'm the founder and CEO of Design UX, which is a strategy and design firm here in Toronto, and we work with startups to help them with marketing, design, user experience, development. Basically, we fill the gaps in your team. I have 20 years experience and 5 startups under my belt. And over that time, I was mostly on the sales and biz dev side of things, where I've sold over $20 million in software and technology. And after my 4th startup, I needed a break. I was a bit burnt out, and I really wanted to know what goes into code. How do people make these apps? I want to learn how to make an app myself, so I took a 9-week full stack code boot camp here in Toronto. And we were only 2 women and 22 guys, and it was the first class that the school offered, so it was a learning curve for everyone. But I survived. And now I'm an entrepreneur in residence for the Ryerson DMZ, and I'm an advisor at the Next 36 and the Next Founders. And I help startup CEOs figure out their product market fit, customer acquisition strategy, product design, and user experience. And when I'm not working, I ride a Triumph Bonneville T100 Black. If there's any motorcycle enthusiasts, it's awesome. So first, I'd like to find out who's here. How many people here are developers? Okay, that's more than half. And how many people are on the business side? Oh, that's a good balance. How many people work for a startup? Okay, that's less, maybe 25%. How many people are founders of a startup? Okay, we're getting a little bit lower, that's about 10. And how many people work for a big company? Bigger than a startup. Okay, so this is a great mix. So I think my presentation will have something for everyone. At least I hope so. So I'd like to start with a story, and I've added some Dilbert cartoons here for your entertainment, and so that you have something to look at while I'm talking. The story that I'd like... Great. The story I'd like to start with is about 3 founders. And they came up with this really cool idea to build a startup. But none of these founders were technical people. One of them was an investment banker. One of them was doing a master's degree in health science. And the other one was in sales. But the idea was solid. So they did a smart thing. They didn't try and build anything themselves. They went to another company that had an off-the-shelf product. They used that product. It was a content management system. This company also provided some branding for them, and they launched. And the great thing is, it validated their idea. It was a good idea, and they got investors. So it took about a year. They got about 10,000 users. They got investors. They were ready to go out there and build their own product. Because their off-the-shelf version couldn't do everything they needed to do. So they did what most people would do, I guess. They wrote an RFP. And then they sent this RFP out to 3 companies in the city and asked for responses. And then these companies in the city came back with their responses, and the 3 startup founders, not being technology people, picked the one that looked the best. The thing about the one that looked the best was that company used all the requirements that these 3 founders had written in this RFP. 3 founders who didn't know anything about technology. And so that startup company went and built what these people asked for. But they didn't go back and challenge them and say, hey, why do you want this? Do you really need this? Instead, they built another content management system. They did it on WordPress. And they made a nice design. So the founders were looking at this, weeks are going by. They're not selling anything because they're waiting to launch their new product. So sales are nowhere, revenue is flat, investors' money is going out the door. They finally get a version that they're ready to launch, at least they think so, and there's all of these features missing. Wait a minute, we need a map. Oh, but we need to do this. We need data analytics. We need this. So then the developers were scrambling, not their fault, because the person leading the project had told them, these are the requirements. So they built layer after layer on this WordPress site. It got worse and worse. The performance got worse and worse to the point where it was like 30 seconds for a search to come up. So the founders were besides themselves, tens of thousands of dollars later, and they had to scrap the whole thing. Couldn't launch it. So they were 3 months past their deadline, 0 sales, and they scrapped the whole project. This is a real thing that happened. So I'd like to talk about some ideas with you that you could all do as developers to help make sure that never happened. Because it wasn't just the founders that really felt bad about it. The developers worked really hard on it, and they saw months of work never going to be used. So nobody won in that scenario. So why do projects fail? Anyone have any suggestions?
People use waterfall.
Waterfall, okay. And by that you think the reason waterfall doesn't work?
The big BRD at the beginning captures the wrong requirements and business changes.
Yes?
Scope creep.
Scope creep, okay, yeah?
Scope creep is good.
Building and touching nobody wants.
Okay, yeah? Anyone else?
Because they use WordPress.
Ooh, fighting words.
Yeah?
You actually alluded to it in your presentation. You basically said that there was no challenging the assumptions about the future.
No challenging the assumptions. Yeah?
I think the waterfall part, when it's confusing change. You have been going into the world.
Right.
Changing requirement.
Changing requirements. Yeah?
Unclear requirements.
Unclear.
Exactly what I asked for, but not what I wanted.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Pardon?
Not even to change the requirements, so not building with the end user in mind.
Not building with the end user in mind. Yeah, the big BRD, the big business requirements document.
Us versus them mentality between the business types and the technical types.
Wow, you guys nailed it. I don't even need to be here. Missed deadlines, over budget, making something people don't want or won't use. They didn't understand the requirements, or the requirements weren't properly communicated. This isn't anyone's fault, it's everybody's fault, in the dreaded scope creep.
Scope always creeps.
So now I'd like to talk about what I believe is the most dangerous word in the English language, particularly when it comes to development, but it actually applies to any kind of human interaction when we're talking to each other. I don't know if you have any guesses. Just. Just minimizes the effort required to achieve a goal or to complete a task. And I can't tell you how many times I'm talking to people and they say, I just want it to work like Facebook. I just want it to make it work like Google Calendar. I want a calendar in my app. Can't you make it like Google? I use that every day. To me, that's like turning to someone and saying, why don't you just lose 20 pounds? It's easy. Or why don't you just find a nice person to date? This word just is awful. And we hear it all the time to developers. Well, you can just do this. If you start thinking about it when you're talking to people, all you business people, just don't ever say it again. And for you developers, just smile when you hear it. Now, what is the most powerful word for developers? Which you guys, I think you all know. Why? Well, you can challenge me in Q&A. Why? So, if we were to do an exercise, this is going to be an estimation exercise. How long would it take to build a web page that supports email-based and social authentication?
$1 million in 6 months.
That's a little high.
Why?
Anyone else? Why? Yeah. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but
There's a plug-in for that.
a plug-in, I like that. First of all, we want to find out why, and we want to find out exactly why or what it is you have to do. And these are just a bunch of questions. So I was talking to a developer about this, and these are the questions that came back to me. You know, which social networks? And do you need to be able to reset a password through email? And should you be able to unlink a social account from an email-based account? Should resetting a user's email address or password require a verification link to be sent to the old account? And on and on and on. So what someone might, in their mind, think, oh, that's pretty easy, I've done it before, suddenly becomes much, much more complex when you start drilling down into the particulars of it. And my friends that did that RFP had no idea about this, and nobody told them. So this is also for the business people, because this is the part where the developers should help you to understand what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So for many business people, technology equals magic, and I don't mean to say that people don't understand how email works or these kinds of things, but they don't know all the complexities and the implications that go into the questions that they're asking their developers to take care of for them. And I think this one sums it up pretty well. They say you can read faster than I could read it to you, but at the end of it, it says, can you design it to tell me what my requirements are? And again, coming back to that original story, you can't take an RFP and build something from it because the people that asked for it didn't even know what they were asking for. So for most developers, a good day is being productive, and you go home and you feel great, and someone says, how was your day? And you're like, I was writing code for 8 hours, it was awesome. And then the next day, there are questions, there was process, there were meetings, I had a bad day. I was interrupted all day long. But my friends, change your mind about that. Embrace questions. Embrace meetings. Get engaged. Get involved. Give your feedback. Become a part of the process, not a casualty of it. So when you're asked to build a feature, do you immediately start thinking about how you're going to build it? Or do you start by qualifying whether you should? Why? So the best developers I've worked with, and this has all been leading up to this slide, start with asking why. Take the initiative and ask business questions. When I go to them and I say, hey, I want you to build this feature because I want my customers to be able to do X, Y, and Z, they're saying, really? Why do you want them to do that? Because I want them to buy more product. Oh, well, you're actually gating them from buying more products by introducing that because it's another layer. Oh, okay. What do you think we should do? Why don't we try doing it another way? And this will get us there in half the time. Great. So every time my developers push back, I'm happy. They usually have better ideas about the business than I do. They don't build what the customers ask for, but they actually listen to what the customers say. They volunteer ideas to make the biggest impact for the least effort. And one of my favorites is explaining the implications of what you're asking for, both long-term and short-term. Yes, we can build that for you right now. But down the road, you may not get the data you need. So I look for developers that will give me an idea of where we're headed and what the implications, good or bad, are. So there's a lean startup. And this was published in 2011, and everyone was very excited about it because it brought this concept of agile development or iteration. We have a copy in the front, second row here. It taught people that customers were important, to release things early and get revenue quickly. But for me, the most important thing the lean startup did was legitimize sales and marketing for engineers. It's the first book that made engineers ever stand up and say, yeah, I get it. I know why we need to have customers and why it's important and what we can do to contribute to that bottom line and make everyone successful. So Steve Blank said, the business and marketing functions of a startup should be considered as important as engineering and product development. So if you haven't read the book, I recommend it, but not just if you're a startup. It applies to any kind of project or any kind of business. Now here's my advice to you business people for working with developers. Engage with developers early on in the project. Don't go off somewhere and design something. Come back and say, here it is, build it. The discussion's kind of over. Explain the why and not just the what. I would like you to build this feature because I want the customers to be able to do X, not just build this feature. Ask for their feedback and suggestions. And don't let process get in the way of collaboration. If you have to fill out a spreadsheet that has to go through 3 levels of approval before you can change a word that's spelled incorrectly on your sign-up form, then you need to throw that process away. And finally, ask questions and share regular updates. Oh, so what I'm saying is collaboration is key. And this is actually second last slide. So collaboration is key. Developers don't go off into a room and build something and bring it back to people and say, here it is, it's done. And business people don't go away in a room and design and put all your requirements together and come back and say, hey, it's ready for you to build. Both sides need to be talking to each other all the way from the start to the finish. That's it. Thank you.